India continues to purchase oil from Russia despite pressure from the U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump's 10 to 12-day peace ultimatum to Russian President Vladimir Putin caused not only diplomatic turmoil, but also serious fluctuations in energy markets. However, one country attracted attention amid this pressure: India. According to official data, India currently sources 35% of its total oil imports from Russia. This ratio has remained unchanged despite increasing pressure from the U.S. and the West, the introduction of new sanctions, and Washington's intervention in the global energy market. India has not halted its oil contracts with Russia for even a single day. For this country with a population of 1.4 billion, energy supply is not merely an economic issue, it is of vital importance for social stability, industrial development, and the maintenance of political balance. This is why India continues to trade oil with Russia despite the growing pressure from the U.S. and the West. India's interest in Russian oil is not new. However, it intensified significantly after the Russia-Ukraine war began in 2022. After Western countries imposed sanctions on Russian oil, Moscow began offering its oil at lower prices on the market. India did not miss this opportunity. Today, approximately 33 to 35% of India's total oil imports come from Russia. This is not just a statistical figure. It is one of the cornerstones of India's energy strategy. Cheap oil from Russia curbs domestic inflation, keeps the industrial sector sustainable, and protects foreign exchange reserves. There are several concrete reasons for continuing this partnership. First, this trade is quite advantageous for India in terms of price. Russia offers its oil at below world market prices within the framework of Western sanctions, which creates a significant economic advantage for developing countries such as India. In addition, the payment mechanisms are structured in a way that is convenient for both parties. Instead of the U.S. dollar, which is traditionally used in energy trade, payments between India and Russia are sometimes made in rupees or rubles. This reduces dollar dependency and strengthens economic independence. The technical aspects of trade have also been developed over time. Russia-India oil routes have been optimized, transportation systems have been modernized, and specialized tanker networks have been established. This makes the delivery process faster and more reliable. Along with all this, political factors are also of considerable importance. India strives to maintain a balanced stance in its foreign policy. It pursues a policy that protects its own interests and finds its way in a multipolar world without aligning itself completely with either the West or Russia. This approach enables India to make independent decisions in strategic areas such as energy. If India were the sole partner in energy cooperation with Russia, the impact of international pressure might be more pronounced. However, the situation is the opposite. India is not alone in this policy, and there are many large and regionally powerful countries among the buyers of Russian oil. This demonstrates that Moscow's energy exports are not dependent on just one or two countries, and its markets are quite extensive. China is considered the largest buyer. Beijing has significantly expanded its energy relations with Russia in recent years. Trade volume in oil and gas has been steadily increasing, and the parties are planning to build new pipelines, gas terminals, and logistics centers. This cooperation is important for China both economically and geopolitically as it strengthens energy security while also helping to reduce economic dependence on the U.S. Turkey also plays an important role in this energy chain. It is not only a consumer, but also serves as the main transit country for Russian oil and gas to reach Europe. The Turk Stream and Blue Stream projects are clear evidence of this and demonstrate the strategic depth of Moscow-Ankara energy relations. Countries such as the UAE and Pakistan are also among those increasing their energy cooperation with Russia. The UAE plays a particularly special role. It acts as a bridge, processing crude oil imported from Russia and re-exporting it to other countries. Pakistan, on the other hand, began direct oil trade with Russia in 2023, and the potential for cooperation in this area is growing steadily. In Africa, Russia is no longer content with merely exporting oil. It is investing in strategic energy projects, building infrastructure, and laying the groundwork for long-term cooperation with the region. This picture shows that Russia is not in such an isolated position that it could be excluded from the energy market, and that the number of countries cooperating with it is not small. But this situation seriously upsets Donald Trump. On July 28, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump issued an ultimatum that shook the world. He announced that he was giving Russia only 10 to 12 days to stop the war. Otherwise, 100% customs duties and harsh sanctions would be imposed on Russia's energy sector. Trump explained this ultimatum based on several key factors. First, he emphasized that there is an injustice in the global energy system. According to him, Russia is manipulating the world market by finding ways to access the market despite the current sanctions and influencing oil prices. This situation threatens not only the economic balance, but also the interests of the United States and its allies. On the other hand, this process also raises serious concerns from a geopolitical perspective. Trump stated that Russia is forming new regional and international alliances through oil. These alliances, particularly energy partnerships with Asian and Middle Eastern countries, could weaken the U.S.'s global influence and alter the current international power balance. To prevent this, the Trump administration has announced that it is prepared to increase U.S. oil production and intervene directly in the market. The aim is not only to stabilize prices, but also to limit Russia's growing influence in the energy sector. With this step, the U.S. is both protecting its own internal economic stability and reaffirming its claim to leadership in global energy security. Trump has made it clear that these sanctions could apply not only to Russian companies, but also to countries trading with them. This serves as a serious warning to buyer nations such as India, China, and Turkey. So how did countries react? Russia and Ukraine responded very differently to Trump's harsh ultimatum. Moscow, sticking to its traditional diplomatic tactics, took a cautious approach to the statement at first. The statement released by the Kremlin press service was quite short and neutral. The statement has been noted. This statement neither denies nor confirms the claim. It merely indicates that the situation is being monitored. However, a more forceful and emotional response came from former Security Council Chairman Dmitry Medvedev. He characterized the demand made by the U.S. president as an ultimatum game and emphasized that it could lead to dangerous consequences. Medvedev noted that such threats could actually deepen the existing tension between the U.S. and Russia and even lead to the risk of direct conflict. Ukraine, on the other hand, welcomed this statement with great satisfaction. President Volodymyr Zelensky wrote on his personal Twitter X account that he considered Trump's words to be a real show of strength for peace. He emphasized that this approach is important not only for Ukraine, but also for the restoration of the international legal order based on international law and rules. Zelensky also called on the international community, and European leaders in particular, to support this firm stance. In his view, only a resolute and united approach can stop aggressive actors such as Russia and enable a real step toward peace. So why is oil so important to countries? The reasons why oil is seen as such an important and strategic resource are not limited to its function as fuel. Oil is the driving force of the modern world. It is one of the fundamental resources that enable economies to function. If water is the physical basis of life, oil plays the role of the blood of the modern industrial and technological world. Its production, transportation, and use not only power cars, planes, and ships, but also enable the operation of agricultural machinery, factories, power plants, and even the production of plastics, fertilizers, medicines, and synthetic materials. Any change in oil prices directly impacts global inflation, economic growth rates, unemployment levels, and overall social stability. Therefore, oil is of exceptional importance not only in economic terms, but also in terms of political and social security. For example, a sharp increase in oil prices leads to higher fuel costs in many countries, which in turn increases food and transportation costs, exacerbates inflationary pressures, weakens purchasing power, and may lead to social discontent. For exporting countries such as energy giants like Russia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, oil is the primary source of budget revenue. A significant portion of these countries' government expenditures, from infrastructure projects to social security programs and military budgets, is financed by revenues from energy sales. Therefore, oil prices and export opportunities are one of the decisive factors for the internal stability and foreign policy power of these countries. Through energy revenues, these states seek to increase their influence in the international arena, expand their regional spheres of influence, and provide financial support for strategic initiatives. At the same time, oil and energy resources in general can become a diplomatic tool. Energy supply creates mutual dependence between states. Energy trade deepens political and economic relations between countries. And sometimes this dependence also determines political maneuvering opportunities. For example, Russia has maintained its political influence over both Europe and Asia through energy supply for many years. On the other hand, the U.S. has chosen to increase its energy independence in order to become a stronger player in international energy markets and strengthen its political influence. For recipient countries, energy, especially oil, is not only an economic necessity, but also a matter of national security. If the stability of energy supply is disrupted, economic activity may grind to a halt, industry and production may weaken, prices may rise rapidly, and ultimately, a wave of social discontent may emerge. For governments, such a situation means both a decline in public confidence and a breakdown in political stability. In this context, the desire of large and rapidly developing countries such as India to protect cheap and sustainable energy sources, especially their relations with supplier countries such as Russia, is entirely reasonable and strategically justified. In short, owning oil or having access to it means both economic and political power. Therefore, the world's leading states and major markets are engaged in intense competition over the management, control, and supply of energy resources. This competition can sometimes escalate into trade wars or even real conflicts, because oil is not just a product, but one of the cornerstones of the global power balance. Now, the entire world is watching the next 10 to 12 days. Will Trump keep his word? Will Russia retaliate? What stance will India adopt? If the U.S. tightens sanctions and includes countries like India, significant changes could occur in the global energy system. India currently stands at a crossroads. Either it will side with the U.S. and risk its energy supply, or it will continue its cooperation with Russia and try to protect its political sovereignty against international pressure. Which path will be chosen is still unclear. However, one thing is certain: the struggle over oil is not merely a market issue. It is a factor that will shape the world's future political architecture. What are your thoughts on this matter? Don't forget to leave your comments. And finally, don't forget to follow our channel to stay informed about such news.